Hey everyone, Fina here from Fina Reads. Welcome and welcome back to my channel. Today I want to talk about fantasy books, big, epic, amazing fantasy books from female authors because March is Women's History Month. We just had International Women's Day. I'm a fan of female authors in the fantasy realm. Some of my favorite books in the fantasy genre have been written by women. So I want to talk about them. Disclaimer, there are a lot more books and authors that I could talk about in this video, but because I didn't want it to be a 3-hour video, I went with intuition, the first ones that I saw on my shelf, and those are the ones I grabbed. If you've been on my channel before, you know there are a lot more books that I have enjoyed, that I've loved over the last years. So hit the subscribe button if you want to hear more about books from amazing authors, no matter the gender, and check out all my older videos. There are a bunch of reviews from amazing authors out there. So without any further ado, at 100 degrees today, let's jump right on in. I want to start with an author where I don't have a physical book quite yet. It should arrive in the next month or two, but I want to mention it first so I don't forget about it. And that is Ka-Yee Essoe and Her Book Time Becomes Relevant, which is volume 1 in the Shaswick of Land series. She just ran a Kickstarter for that. In my last 3, 4, 5 videos, I've been raving about this book, and I think it is incredible what she put to life with her story. First of all, Ka-Yee Essoe as a person is incredible. She is a neuroscientist. She is a doctor, actually. Incredibly smart, has an incredible knowledge about how the brain works when it comes to memory in conjunction with flavors and colors and senses in general. We talked a little bit about that in our live interview, so go check that one out. But that knowledge also translated into her work, and it created a really unique way of how the people in her world are communicating and how the magic system works, and it makes it all incredibly unique. So I had to highlight the book and the author. While we're covering indie authors, I also want to mention Allegra Pescatore. I haven't talked about her in a while, but back like 2 or 3 years ago when I basically binged her The Last Gift series, I was raving about it all the time, and I really have to get back to her because she and her collective have a bunch more books that I need to get to eventually. She blew me away. From the first word that I've read by her, I was enthralled into the story. She wrote one of the most diverse stories that I've ever read. There's disability representation, LGBTQ representation, just in general, how the world is set up, how the characters interact with each other. It's so incredibly diverse and unique because of that, that I just fell in love with it. This also is kind of a Cosmere-like setup so it's called Project AO, where you have multiple different series. Some are written by her, some are co-authored with other authors, some are from other authors, so it's a whole collective. And they created a big universe, think Cosmere, where you have different worlds where everything is set in, and there are Easter eggs that are connecting these series together somehow. I've so far only read the first arc of the Last Gift series, which is a trilogy, and as I said, I binged that, really. Like, these books are thick. This is the thinnest one out of all of them. The other two are thick boys, and I had so much fun reading them. I cannot wait for the first book of the next arc in the series. I know she's working on it right now. She's also dealing with motherhood right now, so she's probably a little bit preoccupied. But there are other books in other series already out there, so there's a lot you can really dig your teeth into and enjoy. And now we're just going in order of the stack that I have sitting next to me. The next book is Elizabeth Moon, or the next author, rather, is Elizabeth Moon, and I want to talk about Sheep Farmer's Daughter, which is book 1 in the Deeds of Paxenarian series. That is a rather recent read. I actually just talked about it in like 2 videos ago in my February wrap-up. Quick plug. This was our February Backlist Book Club pick. Nico from Nico's Book Review and I are hosting the Backlist Book Club all year long, where we read books from female authors that are backlist titled. So if you want to join the Backlist Book Club, you can do that. We are reading Melanie Ron's Dragon Prince in March, and then in April we are reading Marlon Haushofer's The Wall. This one I'm really curious about because it's either going to be a ginormous hit or a ginormous miss. I don't know. I feel like there's no in between with this one. We do buddy reads over our Nico's Discord, and it has been a lot of fun so far, so I hope you're going to join us. Anyway, in February, we read Sheep Farmer's Daughter by Elizabeth Moon, and this one was super interesting. And the reason why I wanted to put it in here is because for the majority of the book, I actually just kind of liked it. I mean, the story was interesting, you know, the whole, like, the battle scenes and whatnot were interesting, but it was way too plot driven for my liking. I'm a very character driven reader, and I need to know why. I need to get into people's head and need to know why, what is going on. And I didn't get that much in this book. But here's the reason why I still wanted to put it on this list, because towards like the last 20%, it really sucked me in because it added a magic system that I did not see coming and that I found very, very fascinating, and that definitely made me want to continue with the series. Up till then, I was kind of like, okay, I guess I get some place on my shelf by getting rid of the series. Not anymore. So she definitely converted me into someone who is willing to continue reading a plot-driven fantasy. Although from what I've heard, book 2 is a bit more on the character-driven side and we get a bit more of the why and whatnot. But other than that, Elizabeth Moon was in the military, and this is a military fantasy, and a lot of kind of the camp life and some of the battles feel very realistic and very well described. That was one of the things that I really enjoyed about this book, is the way just these little skirmishes and battles were handled was very, very interesting, because it was very different than a lot of other books, like think Game of Thrones battle scenes and whatnot. Very, very different in this one. So her expertise in that area really played in well in the story. Next up is an author that I had like two startings with. The first start, I read a book in a longer series by her, and I liked it okay, but I wasn't completely excited about it and didn't want to continue immediately. But then I read a different work by her, a novella, and then a duology right after, and I fell in love with her, and now I want to read all of her work, essentially. And that is Kate Elliott, and I'm holding up the first book in the Witch Roads duology that came out last year. Both books came out last year, and the novella that I read was Keeper 6, and I loved them all. And also, Kate Elliott as a person is incredible. She has so much knowledge about so many different things. Smart. Like, I mean, she can talk about things where I'm just sitting there in awe about how detailed her knowledge is about all these different aspects, and they show up in her work. She does a lot of research for her books. Like, this one is a bit more Asian inspired, and she did research on like how a caste system might work, that kind of stuff. Again, you can take a look at either Nico's interview with her. She talked a lot about that in the interview with him as well, or in my interview that I did with her early in 2025. Just an incredible woman that you can only admire for her knowledge and how she translates that into stories like this one. Super slow paced, but I was never ever bored while reading this. I was so fascinated by the politics that she wove into the story, by the fact, and I say that over and over again because I find this so fascinating, by the fact that this is essentially a journey from A to B. And that is something that I'm not a big fan of in fantasy, like journeying in general. But it was so well done here. She put so much stuff into the journey. Basically, you learned about the world and the political system while you were on that journey with all of these characters. And it was so cool. And there were so many other aspects in here that are just incredibly enjoyable. So this is a book that I recommend everybody to read, no matter if you like slow-paced books or not. But if you're on the look for a really cool fantasy story that tells the story in a slightly different way than you might be used to, read this. Oh my god, another new one. Oh, you guys, I will tell you more about that in my wrap-up in March, because I literally just read it. And that is Assassin's Apprentice by Robin Hobb. What is going on? This was so good. But again, I'll try to tone it down and keep the majority for the March wrap up. So don't forget to hit the subscribe button if you want to hear my thoughts on that. Clearly, they're very positive. So Yes, a lot of people, including Derry, I love you, told me for years now that I should read Robin Hobb. Finally, I did. And I cannot believe that I waited so long for doing this. Like, why? What was I thinking? I don't get it. This was so incredible. I mean, the characters, so this is very character driven, which first of all, that is a big win for me already. But then the character was so, I don't know. I loved following him along. I loved seeing him grow up, and I loved like figuring out with him of what is good, what is not good, how to maneuver the court and all those kind of things. And then the magic system on top of that was so cool. And then all of a sudden the world exploded in front of you, and it was so cool. There's so many really cool elements in this story. That was the reason why I wanted to highlight this. And then to top it off, and I haven't read them yet, but obviously I know about the whole bigger series, right? Robin Hobb wrote, how many books is it? 12 books? 13 books? Is that right in the series? And that is huge. Like, that is not something a lot of people do. So having such a big universe with so many like individual trilogies or one quartet in there that so many people love and will read over and over and over again is, yeah, that's the reason why I had to put her in here, because I think this is incredible. I think that needs to be talked about, right? And needs to be shouted from the rooftops that is amazing and that she did an amazing job with that. And then, yeah, the story itself is just, what? There cannot be a video like this without this author. And of course, I'm talking about Kristen Britain, my favorite fantasy series and fantasy author of all times. I've been reading Kristen Britain's books for, I don't know, 20 years at this point, probably. I've been looking forward to every single release because the series is still ongoing. And we just heard about book 9 coming out December 2026. So you know what I'm going to do at the end of the year. I'm going to probably not reread the entire series because I kind of just did. But I will definitely read book 9. I love this. Like, this series has accompanied me through so many things. It cheered me up when I was down. Like, it was my comfort book, especially book 1 was my comfort book in so many situations. When I moved over here into the US and kind of felt just lost at times, this one made me feel like home again. And just for that, I will be forever grateful to Kristen Britain for having written this series. And then the story itself too, it's just such a, even though it is dark and it gets really dark in the later books, it is such a positive story still, following along with Kerrigan and seeing her grow and going with her through all of the challenges that she's being put through. It is such a intimate experience, really, to go through that with her. And, you know, it will always be my favorite book. I don't think there will be a book that will dethrone Kristen Britain for me just because of the personal connection I have with this story. So, yeah, how can I have a video about female authors and not mention Kristen Britain? One more that I haven't talked about in a while, where I also pretty much binged the trilogy, is Ka-Yee Villoso, and I'm talking specifically about the Chronicles of the Bleep Queen, which they changed the name now to Wolf Queen. Ka-Yee Villoso also published multiple trilogies, and she is part trade published with that trilogy with Orbit, and then she has 2 more trilogies, I believe, that are indie published. Way underrated author, in my opinion, completely underrated, not talked about often enough. And this story in particular is, again, very character driven, and that's what I loved about it. So this is an intimate portrayal. I love the words intimate and incredible today, so just roll with it. An intimate portrayal of a woman who is the queen of a country that doesn't want her as a queen. She basically married into that leadership role, and she is struggling with that. She has a son, and then her husband disappears all of the sudden, and then everything kind of gets into a turmoil, and she has to figure shit out, and she has no clue how to do that. You're basically following along with her as she figures everything out. You see her struggle, you see her inner thoughts, and you know, her ups and downs, how she deals with failure, with success, with doubting herself. I love this book for that. And then on top of that, of course, you have an amazing magic system, amazing political world. Like, there's a lot of good stuff happening. Dragons too at one point. Just from a general fantasy aspect, a lot of good stuff in here. But then in particular, that portrayal of a woman in leadership, in a leadership role, and all the struggles she goes through because of that. It's so good and so realistic, unfortunately, too, in a lot of cases. And it's just like, last book that I want to talk about today is not an epic fantasy, but more like an urban fantasy. It's from an author from Australia. She wrote a bunch of standalones and then a duology, and that duology is what made me fall in love with her, and that's H.D. Parry's, and the duology is called the Shadows History duology, and book 1 is A Declaration of the Rights of Magicians. This is essentially a retelling of the French Revolution, Napoleonic Wars, Haiti slave uprising, but with magic. So you're following along the exact things that happened back then, 1700 something rather, 1800 something rather, with the same figures from that time. But you have vampires as part of that. You have monsters living in the sea. You have magic going on. And part of that whole revolution aspect is now the magic itself. Just that alone I thought was very creative. She wrote another book that was also set in the French Revolution, so that seems to be a time that she just enjoys and likes to write about. But this one here in particular also is like a weird mix of plot driven, because you're following along the exact story of history, and a lot of political dialogue. And that was the interesting stuff here, really. It's not really character driven, so there's not a lot of deep dive into the character and getting into someone's head in there. It's really more following along the historic aspects and then kind of finding the Easter eggs of where the magic is in the history. The part that I really loved about this book in the entire duology is the dialogue between all of these political figures and how they maneuver around some things. In fact, I don't know if that makes a whole lot of sense what I'm saying. You might just have to grab the book and read it to see what I'm talking about. Slow paced, super slow paced, so you have to be ready for that, compared to The Witch Rose by Kate Elliott, where you don't really feel the slow pace as you're reading it. Here you feel that, so you have to be someone who enjoys slow paced fantasy, otherwise you will be bored out of your mind. Watching these figures maneuver through their political games and see the things resolve and play out. Oh, it was so good. It was so much fun to watch that. And I also think, again, H.D. Parry is a completely underrated author. She wrote so many interesting books. I definitely haven't read all of her backlog yet, but she has an incredible imagination that she puts on paper in a very different way. And you know, we need that in fantasy. We can't always read the same sword and sorcery kind of stuff. Those are the books that I wanted to highlight. As I mentioned, there's so many more that I could have put into this video. I keep talking about, especially because I love reading fantasy from female authors. I find women always have an interesting perspective on the world, and I just enjoy seeing that perspective. So in general, I read a lot of books by female authors, so just go check out my videos if you want more recommendation. And then also go down in the comments and let us know, what is a favorite female fantasy author of yours? What is a story that you absolutely fell in love with written by a woman? Let us know down in the comments. Let's add more recommendations to this list. And then I hope I'll see you soon with a next video. Till then, have an amazing rest of your day. Bye!